Hello and welcome to another Outlook discussion and a very happy Independence Day to everybody. We have with us Suraj Yangde, academic and author, who's collaborated with Outlook this time on this special issue. And we have Outlook editor Chinky Sinha. Suraj joins us from somewhere near Aurangabad. Is that right, Suraj?
It's Nanded.
Nanded. Okay. And Chinky is here in Delhi, of course. So the special issue this time is really looking at, even after 75 years of affirmative action, what does freedom mean to Dalits today? Why are there so many caste atrocities committed even now? Every day you open the paper, there's something or the other. And of course, also I look at the rise and fall of the Dalit Panthers movement, which started in the 70s. Where does that stand now? Is there a revival? So these are some of the issues that we have dealt with, in this special issue. Chinky, if you would like to start as to, why we even thought of this, why now at this point?
Okay, well, I just firstly wanted to thank Suraj for helping us out with the entire section on the Dalit Panthers, because it started last year when there was a conversation about doing this issue on Dalit Panthers, because it was their 50th year, and somehow we didn't do it that time, and then this time we wanted to take it as an Independence Day issue because it would have made more sense in terms of the atrocities and the idea of freedom itself and what it means for different communities. And initially we wanted to take a lot more, but as with the magazine, you always end up with these limitations of pages, and so we kept it to the SC. And in the newspapers, you keep seeing all these reports. I mean, kabhi kisi ko ghoda pe nahi baithne de rahe hain. Then there are women paraded naked. I mean, that also happened in Manipur. But like, for example, Hathras didn't happen too long ago. And there are these sporadic, not really sporadic, I think these are regular incidents of atrocities that are being committed, but not really dealt with by the mainstream media in a way that, you make a statement or you take a stand. So we decided to take a stand with this issue, and over a meeting, we decided that we'll take it on the entire SC community rather than just looking at the movement, because movements then also kind of the backdrop is the atrocities. And so we have a lot of interesting stuff, and one of my favorite pieces is by Professor Y.S. Alone, who actually had come to one of our museum chats and had talked about this Museum of Untouchability, which clearly doesn't exist. And we asked him to write a piece imagining this museum and what it would keep or what it would display and the architecture and everything. And I think imagination also has a role to play in journalism, which we have always kind of looked down upon, that, facts, but facts are not really enough in today's and the times are such. So we thought we'll take a lot of fiction, poetry, and all kinds of things to kind of like, I mean, the issue is still very compact. We've not been able to deal with a lot more, but we've touched upon a lot of it.
See, that is true. In a magazine, mainstream magazine, it cannot never really be exhaustive. But yes, it definitely, I mean, it's a big, thick issue from our side. And, the subject is so vast. So some of it had to be left out. But anyway, then for that, we always have the outlookindia.com. Where all the other articles would be put, and the website, it has its own ecosystem and it sort of travels. And yes, Suraj, as Chinky said, thank you very much for collaborating with us, and it's I think turned out very, very well. Some very, really fantastic academics and historians and scholars that you've got from various parts of the country to write about the Dalit Panthers movement, the rise and the fall, the politics within, the intricacies between the people, and the various personalities. So for yourself, I mean, the movement itself, I remember you telling me that it's one of the most important movements which has not probably got as much say play or recognition in popular minds, in people's minds. Is that what you isn't that what you think?
Thank you, Satish, and thank you, Chinky. It's been a marvelous pleasure. It took us through so many mountains and hoops. I remember I was just looking at my timeline to actually look at the exact date or the week that I reached out to Satish with an idea. In fact, it was Satish who said, "Why don't you write a piece on rain? You guys are doing a special issue." But I had also something in mind about the Dalit Panthers, because in regional languages, there is a documented history. But in English language, you don't see a compact kind of a souvenir where one can just pick up and access the literature. Because I was in Tamil Nadu with the VCK, with the Liberation Panthers. They have their own literature. They have their own version of stories, and similarly Gujarat and Punjab. So it really took like traveling to different places, people, the elderly Panthers who are in their 70s, some of them are in 80s, to really encourage them. And it was so surprising to see that even in their age, they had so much of an energy when you talk about the movement. And they were really some people who were like looking to recreate that energy and really a selfless motive behind that. For that to kind of come about, it was very important. And probably, to my understanding, Dalit Panthers has been written about. There's also one book, there was a PhD thesis written, I think, in Marathi and then translated in English. But apart from that, there's not really a contemporaneity of that Dalit Panther. It's such an interesting mix of literature, poetry, and various forms. And hopefully, down the line, my vision was people should access Outlook Independence Day Special Issue 2023 with a commitment to the lives of those Dalits who have been undergoing same atrocities. And recently what we saw in Manipur, it really rings bell what happened in Brahmangaon, Parbhani, where Dalit women were paraded naked. And Raja Dhale incidentally had written an article in an Independence Day special for Sadhana, a socialist magazine here, and that created an uproar, but he pointed out that issue. So we are really meeting at a time, Satish, that the erstwhile history seems like the history is too quick to declare itself that it's not a history anymore.
Yeah, and in fact, as you mentioned, though the Panthers, the original Panthers now are in their 70s or 80s, but there is no lack of enthusiasm. I remember Chinky meeting Pawar Saab, and I think he's 80 plus now, and I remember she telling me how full of energy, and he's such a wonderful man, who's still so. If you would like to tell us a little bit about your meeting there.
So basically, we were looking for, the Dalit Panther, the original, like the people who founded it, and it was a literary movement as well. And I had been reading Namdev Dasa's obviously translated poetry. I don't know how to read Marathi, but also from here and there. And then they said, you must meet J.B. Pawar. And I also believe in the serendipity situation, so we messaged some people and some people messaged us so many numbers. And then, suddenly I landed up at Namdev Dasa's wife, Malika Amar Sheikh, who also had written a book, I Want to Destroy Myself, which is also very interesting as to how, she was a daughter of a communist, and kind of the movement now, the Namdev Dasa bit of it has gone to her after his death. Yeah. And how there are a lot of now factions within the movement itself, because they're not very happy with her choice, because she was never involved with the movement directly, and all kinds of interesting things. And then finally I met J.B. Pawar, who's 80 years old. And I remember I was standing at Dadar station, and he came with an umbrella and all that. And he's like, okay, let's go. And we went there, and he talked so much, and it was so nice that he had everything in his memory, like these dates. Yeah. And he could specifically describe what happened on this day. And our camera batteries ran out, our everything.
Yeah. And he, finally he sent his piece typewritten and handwritten, because he doesn't use a computer. So we had to put it, translated.
And humility by saying that
absolutely,
I don't know English. And it was, and through them, then some other person came around and they said that, why don't you meet Anand Teltumde? And he's out of prison and he lives in Ambedkar's house, Rajgruha. So on a rainy evening, we went there and just to have a chat with him. And his views also were very interesting in terms of the question and the solution. And it was quite, the thing is also, while doing this issue with Suraj, we learned a lot. We could revisit certain things, obviously, given the fact that we come from a completely different side of it. It's very difficult to understand. And I think a lot of it came from this issue. I'm not saying that we understand completely, but it's a very sad thing. The Dalit
absolutely. Absolutely. And the edition, the special issue, has a very compact piece by Suraj himself. They're just putting the whole thing together. And then he goes on to, if we go on to sort of, as he said, to various regions, to get scholars to write about, say, Gujarat, about Kerala, about Tamil Nadu, what happened there. So that process, Suraj, if you want to just briefly explain, who were these people you sort of identified, and how they went about talking about the Panthers in their own area?
See, one of the reasons we couldn't put it out in time was because I was just not satisfied with what I had. I really felt that we need to really scour and comb through the region as much as one can. And that literally took me to this exploration. And that's why it took some time to come to fruition. With Javi Pawar Saab, for example, when one of your reporters conducted an interview about a couple days later, he calls me up and says, "Hey, what's happening? When is it coming out?" He was very much anxious. He was very much excited to see that, because probably, I mean, there are many things he wanted to say that are otherwise not being recorded. And also this is his statement, right? So for me, as any ethnographer or researcher who goes on field, as Chinky was saying, one thing leads to another. I was trying to really hunt down the leaders and what it took. And so, there were two regions that I was really keen on looking at. One was the Rajasthan and another was Uttar Pradesh, because Bihar I could manage of their own. And there's also a wonderful article on the Bihar movement when Dalits took up the arms. But Rajasthan and UP had a very core base. And so we could get Uttar Pradesh covered by scholar Nicola Jowl, but somehow Rajasthan remained sort of, so I even went to Rajasthan. I kept asking people. And so there was one Mr. Berwa at the time who was the leader of Rajasthan Dalit Panthers. And people seems to have no memory. And I asked this in one of the public functions of Ambedkarites, do they know? I could see a couple of heads only tilting, but they didn't have really idea. So for this to really come in a compact sense, it was really sort of revisiting the memories of struggle. The Punjabi Dalit Panther leader, Mr. S.L. Virdi, who probably started at 17-year-old, when you talk to him, he's still 17-year-old when you're asking him about the struggle. And certainly he's somebody who really exemplifies, if you are part of a movement and if you are committed and convicted, you don't really go to dogs, so to say, because there's usually this kind of belief, okay, you should not do activism. You should not participate in social movements because some things are going to go. I mean, there are incidents in Marathwada where I am, where we have certain incidents of such nature. But also, if you look at these exemplary cases, we really see, and there's also in Dalit Panther, there's so much contradiction. There's so much mix. Ramdas Athawale, in his interview that I did with him, was so suave, was so accepting. He really presented himself as a government minister. He said, we need to start movements. We cannot just rely on the government. We really need a movement like Dalit Panthers. And at the core, Ramdas Athawale is a field worker who grew up under the mentorship of Raja Dhali. And then he, of course, admired Namdev Dasal and the literary giants. And that's how the progress of the movement has been. So what we see here, the gravitas of Dalit Panther, of course, it's an historical trajectory, but there is a lot of echoes in various pockets about restarting certain national movement. And then when I went to research, at least in Maharashtra, I realized almost every second district has a Dalit Panther, but by a different acronym, by a different leader, by a different gesture. And I was so surprised. And their issues are so radical. They want to fight for land rights, which is the government wasteland, what we call Gairan Jamin. Their idea is to contest atrocities, and they want to go there on the field and demonstrate their presence. The idea is about accessing education for youth, the medical care. And when I was looking at it, there is a certainly enigma. See, every historic community has a paragon. There is a citation of a milestone that might act as a history. So Dalit Panthers movement was that, but also what it does in its own form is like going on the stage, you are improvising yourself. You are inculcating your own cultural hybridities. Tamil Nadu, for example, or for that example, Kerala. The Kerala Dalit Panthers were themselves, I mean, in the communist state, having a Kerala Dalit Panthers, and then those people now, the leaders, are now towards Buddhism. They want to invest towards Buddhism. And of course, there was a little bit of disappointment. As always happens, people are depressed, the family gets targeted by some means or other. So there's always sacrifices to that. So what we see, Satish, in this sense is there is a certain momentary historical truth that we have tried to bring forward. And hopefully this remains, and this, as we said, we could not include all of it, but maybe something later of a book form that I hope to do intentionally will act like, okay, somebody did. And I really would like to applaud Outlook. It has really been a very charming and welcoming space for new ideas. I mean, when I proposed the idea of 50.
That's kind of you. And I mean, of course, it was great working with you and to, bring out this. As, Suraj was saying, yes, the Athavale interview is very revealing. The Nicholas Joel piece is so fascinating. He came to India as a 21-year-old young boy, and he starts off, a French student. And he starts off like that from Uttar Pradesh, and then he recounts how it's a very fascinating article. And apart from, these Dalit Panther articles, of course, we also have, Chinky, our own reports, there is also reportage. I mean, it's not just columns and, interviews. There's, on the feminist Dalit movement that our reporter Rakhi has.
The Dalit Boy project where Aro Akund.
Aro Akund, yes.
That's a
very
last year, I think, at Perch. And from that time onwards, we were talking about this piece. Then you have, I think, we need to mention the cover. The cover came from Nayantara, who works with the Feminist Memory Project and everything, and her work was at Kochi. And I've known her for a long time. So that's what I'm saying, like this whole idea of collectives that we have been promoting in terms of journalism, because that's the new way. I think Nayantara just showed up at my house with these books. She was leaving for Kathmandu, and one of the books on the Dalit movement in Nepal, it had this photo with a poem. And then it just struck me that this could be the cover, and that became the cover. And a lot of interesting artists like the Dalit Panther Project, which is the new niche kind of art, but looks at. And then, of course, the Sadhana magazine guy, I mean, you spoke to him, and because mentioned that 72, Raja Dhale came out with this whole thing of Black Independence Day. And Sadhana magazine carried at that time, Indira Gandhi was celebrating this 25 years of Indian independence. Much has changed. He was so good to, I mean,
and one striking thing in this putting together this issue was how helpful the people that we've contacted have been. I called up Sadhana magazine's editor Vinodji just in the morning. And he was, I think, putting together an issue, and he said, I told him, sir, we are running against a deadline. If you could please send a piece. And he sent the piece in a few hours. By evening it had landed. So he must have put his own work on hold and sat and written this. So that has been an amazing experience.
Like we sent him the question that night. I sent it, and the next day with a polite thing that I have written 79 words more, and I'm like, how humble is this guy? The own reportage. See, I grew up in Bihar in a very caste oriented kind of society, and I was there when the whole Mandal movement, the Mandal Commission thing happened, and there were this immolations in JNU, and obviously was too young to understand any of these things at the time. And we were grouped together as a forward caste, and then was this whole victimization situation where we had made ourselves believe that there's nothing for us. At the time of coming of Lalu, which changed situation in Bihar forever. Bihar was the first state, by the way, to not implement rather, but pass the land reforms thing. Because Rameshwar Mukhia said ki Khun ki nadiyan beh jayenge, and happened. Sena, and there were all these caste wars we would hear about, but we had no idea. There was the People's Party. Somebody in my own family was there, and many years later I met that guy, and he explained a certain thing, a certain context of what was happening at the time. And cut to what, 2020, 21, the RJD ties up with CPML, which was formerly the People's Party. So we asked Umesh, and the caste census, which is being done to bring back the conversation on caste, which is kind of a catch-22 between the devil and the deep sea. You use caste to kind of keep Hindutva at bay. And that article was a very interesting one that we are finished to do. And so all of these interesting things that, you probably read about and observe, or some things that you have experienced, but you were not able to relate, kind of. So those things. And other thing I wanted to mention, that we have also, like, one of the first encounters with caste in a deeply engaging way was through people who worked, around us. And I had never thought about it. And my first journalism application, I think I wrote about Munia, who used to be a toilet cleaner, but I could never understand, like, why the chai was given to her in a broken cup, which was pushed with a stick, which I asked my grandmother, and there were all these ambivalent kind of answers, ki aisa hi hota hai, vaisa hota hai, but nobody gave like a clear-cut answer. And then Mulk Raj Anand's book, The Untouchable, which was in our syllabus at that time. Now the syllabus, I don't know what it is, but during those times, it was a day in the life of Gita. And that kind of, and over the years, obviously, Sudhara Kolbe, all these kinds of people that we've met. So, what I want to say is that not just this, there are a lot of things that happened in the past over the years that came together in bringing out this issue.
Absolutely. So it is really, it is really a special issue in that sense. I mean, not just like a term, and it is a collector's item, and it's got, a whole range of subjects that we've dealt with. Thank you very much, Suraj, for the collaboration, and thank you, Chinky, for the
and thank you, Suraj, so much for being so patient, and we learned so much. Now I feel like I'm more equipped to answer these strange questions being thrown at us about caste, and sometimes you don't understand. Like Dalit Panthers, for instance, was like such a beautiful thing, and I wish they would regroup and.
Yeah, so the issue must be out now on the stands. Please do go pick it up. And for all those otherwise, there is always www.outlookindia.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.